Officer. Welcome to the January 9th, 2023 meeting of the Community Corrections Partnership. We'll start with a roll call. Madam Clerk, can you please do a roll call of the CCP?
Yes, sir. Member Davis,
Present.
Member Jakowski,
Here.
Member Lewis, Member Miller,
Here.
Member Olson,
Looked like Tracy looked like you came off mute, but we couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Here. I was talking to myself, I think.
Member Raven.
Here.
Member Sullivan, Member Valdez, Member Vega,
Present.
Member Villegas,
Present.
Member Ferknick.
Present.
All members are present.
Thank you. Next is a CCP action item. Consider approval of the agenda. Hopefully everyone has reviewed the agenda. Would anybody like to make any comments or questions? If not, can I get a motion to approve, please?
Miller will make that motion.
First by Chief Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Tracy. Can we get a roll call vote to approve the agenda, please?
Member Davis,
Aye.
Member Jakowski,
Aye.
Member Lewis, Member Miller,
Aye.
Member Olson,
Aye.
Member Raven.
Aye.
Member Sullivan, Member Valdez, Member Vega,
Yes.
Member Villegas.
Yep.
Member Ferknick.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next up is agenda item number 4, public comment. Opportunity for members of the public to address the CCP on subjects related to CCP business and not otherwise on the agenda. Speakers will be limited to 2 minutes. Clerk, do you see any public speakers?
No, Chair.
All right, thank you. Next up is the consent agenda. It would authorize remote meetings and also approve the minutes of the November 14th, 2022 meeting. Is there any comments or questions on the consent agenda? If not, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So moved, Jonathan.
That's Jonathan first, second by Rocio. Clerk, can we please have a vote on approving the consent agenda?
Yes, sir. Member Davis,
Aye.
Member Jakowski,
Aye.
Member Lewis, Member Miller,
Aye.
Member Olson,
Aye.
Member Raven.
Aye.
Member Sullivan,
Yes.
Member Valdez, Member Vega,
Yes.
Member Villegas,
Yes.
Member Ferknick.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Bring us to agenda item number 7, member announcements. Do any of the members have any announcements they would like to share with the CCP? Nolan?
Just a quick one, and I think everyone sort of knows this, but I just wanted to reiterate it. Our good friend Ian Evans has left Health and Human Services, so he is now with Yolo County Housing. So he was our adult services branch director and was very involved in this group, as well as substance abuse and some other things. So just wanted to wish him well in his new role and let folks know that he is over at Yolo County Housing now as their director. And in the interim, Carlene and I are figuring out how to cover that vacancy, and we're working on it. But so if you need anything from Ian for now, come to Carlene or I, and hope we all join me in wishing him the best in his new position.
Thank you. Any other member announcements? Looking at the boxes, seeing none. We'll move to number 8, receive update on the 2023-2025 CCP strategic plan. Turn this over to John.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you're all aware, the CCP voted on November 14th to advance the final language of the strategic plan to the Board of Supervisors for them to either accept or reject the plan. That was originally going to go in December, but due to the crowding on that calendar, got moved to tomorrow's January 10th Board of Supervisors meeting. In advance of that meeting, the chief has had one-on-one conversations with each of the supervisors to make them aware of the contents of the plan in advance of the meeting and respond to any questions they may have had individually. And we will be presenting the plan to the full board tomorrow at the January 10th meeting. Once the plan, presuming the plan is accepted, which is what we expect, the plan will go into effect immediately after its acceptance tomorrow. And that's all we have at this point in time.
Thank you, John. I'll open it up to questions or comments from the CCP. Seeing none, I'll open that agenda item up to public comment. Do we have any public comment on this agenda item?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Brings us to number 9. Appoint a representative of the Health and Human Services Agency to the Outcomes and Metric Ad Hoc Subcommittee. And this will be John as well.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So at the November 14th meeting, the CCP authorized the Outcomes and Metrics Ad Hoc Subcommittee to begin convening and performing its work. At the time, there was not a final decision as to who would be representing Health and Human Services Agency on the committee. There was just a decision to appoint someone in January. We have determined that Nolan Sullivan will be representing HHSA on that ad hoc subcommittee and would like a vote of approval from the CCP to finalize and confirm that appointment. So we're asking the CCP vote to approve Nolan Sullivan as a member of the Outcomes and Metrics Ad Hoc Subcommittee.
I'll open it up to the CCP for questions or comments.
I think he'd be a fine addition.
I agree. If you're looking for a motion, I would make the motion to add Nolan Sullivan to the Outcome Ad Hoc Committee.
Okay, let me hold that motion real quick. I'll open up the public comment on this agenda item first. Do we have any public comment?
No, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Tracy has gave us a first on supporting and moving this agenda item forward. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Under Sheriff Davis. Clerk, can we get a vote to approve Nolan Sullivan for the Outcomes and Metric Ad Hoc Subcommittee?
Yes, Chair. Member Davis,
Aye.
Member Jakowski,
Aye.
Member Lewis, Member Miller,
Aye.
Member Olson,
Aye.
Member Raven,
Aye.
Member Sullivan,
I'm tempted to vote against myself, but I'll vote yes.
Member Valdez, Member Vega,
Yes.
Member Villegas,
Yes.
Member Ferknight,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Bring this to agenda item number 10. Receive report of the work of the Community-Based Organization Member Selection Ad Hoc Subcommittee and consider appointment of Christina Andrade Lemus to fill the CBO representative vacancy. And I did fail to check with the ad hoc on who wanted to talk on this agenda item. Do we have any volunteers between Carlene, Jonathan, or Tracy?
It's all silent. I think that, I mean, our recommendation is that Christina from Communicare be appointed as our representative on the CBO. There weren't, frankly, a lot of people that applied, but I think, speaking for myself, if I could have picked somebody, I would have picked Christina or someone exactly like her. So I think she's a perfect candidate, and I think that we all agree that she would fill that role nicely. So that's the recommendation from the ad hoc committee.
I agree with that. I think we just want to make sure that Communicare has a alternate that's official in case Christina can't make it on certain meetings.
Perfect, John. I know we have an alternate.
Yeah, Christina has selected Tegwin Millard to be her alternate going forward.
Okay. So Open that up to the full CCP for consideration and comments. Okay, is there any public comment on this agenda item?
No, Chair.
Okay, we'll turn it back to the CCP. I support this 100% as well. Worked with her for years now, and she's going to be a great addition to the CCP. With that being said, would someone please make a motion to approve it? Or is there a motion?
So moved.
First by Jonathan, sounds like a second by Tracy. And that includes the alternate as well. Okay. Clerk, can we please have a roll call vote to approve?
Member Davis,
Yes.
Member Jakowski,
aye,
Member Lewis, Member Miller,
Aye.
Member Olson,
Aye.
Member Raven.
Aye.
Member Sullivan,
Yes.
Member Valdez, Member Vega,
yes,
Member Villegas,
Yes.
Member Fruitnick,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Next up is agenda item number 11, receive a financial update. I'll turn it over to Laura.
Good afternoon, Laura Liddicoat, CCP Fiscal Support, with an update regarding the fiscal year 23-24 CCP budget. The governor's proposed budget for fiscal year 23-24 is anticipated to be released at the end of the week. Once released, staff will be able to generate revenue projections for the CCP. Once completed, staff will then email CCP departments projected revenues. Given the current economic climate, staff are anticipating limited growth in CCP revenues next year, as opposed to the unprecedented amount of growth funding we have seen in the past 2 to 3 fiscal years. While the CCP has sizable fund balances and has met the reserve amount goal outlined in the CCP budget principles, DFS has advised that the reduced growth expected in CCP revenues for the coming fiscal year may be indicative of slowing and limited growth for the next few fiscal years. The county's recommended budget process will be starting in the next few weeks. Per the CCP budget policy, the CCP has a deadline of April 30th to approve the CCP budget to align with the county's recommended budget process. DFS has set a deadline of February 24th for departments to submit their 23-24 fiscal year budgets. As such, if departments or community-based organizations have new funding requests or requests to increase funding for existing programs, those proposals are due to the CCP analyst, Mr. Rowe, by February 24th. A standardized form will be available in the next few weeks. This form should be used as the cover sheet to any proposal. Excuse me. Submission on February 24th will allow staff time to analyze requests and prepare a comprehensive proposed budget for CCP consideration at the April 10th meeting. Happy to answer any questions.
I just had a quick question. When you said limited growth, you're not saying a limited more than what we currently got. You're saying what we currently got as growth is liable to go down significantly. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that the growth portion of CCP revenues, we kind of think are not going to be as high as they have been in the recent fiscal years. The base should remain solid. You provided if nothing drastic happened in the governor's budget.
Okay, but that sizable growth is okay, and we'll know more at the end of the week. Got it.
Yep, end of the week. I'll have something to you early next week, most likely.
Other members for discussion or comments? Not seeing any. Clerk, I'll open it up to public comment on this agenda item. Do we have any public comment?
No, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Bring us to agenda item number 12, receive update on the Day Reporting Center request for proposals. The update is that Sacramento County Office of Education was awarded the RFP that we've been working on. We've had a recent meeting with them to fine tune and discuss contract details. We had a first meeting a week ago, and we have another one coming up next month with more of the larger body with SCOE. They'll bring some of their contract attorneys. We'll have county counsel there, et cetera. But our first meeting was just kind of a general meeting to kind of lay a few questions and concerns of both sides out. We need to have the contract in place by July, and it'll take some time before then because I'll have to bring it back to the CCP for approval and bring it to the board as well. So while we have a little bit of time to deal with it, it's going to be busy pushing this through, but we want to make sure that the contract's right for the CCP and the county and our clients. So I'll have more, hopefully a better update in April after we've had another meeting. With that, I'll turn it over to the CCP for questions or comments. Tracy?
Can you remind the group, I think their budget is around 600,000 in the past decade. What is it now? What's their new budget?
Well, that's part of the contract discussions we're having right now. They've submitted with what their RFP budget is, and it's quite a bit more than that. It's about $380,000 above the decade-long 620,000. And we're negotiating with them to really flush that out and figure out, is there a true need for that cost increase? And so that'll be an ongoing process with contract negotiations. But yes, it does look like DRC, the bill for the DRC will be increasing. How much, obviously, would be depend on the contract negotiations, bringing it back to the CCP for approval, et cetera. Clerk, I'll open it up for public comment if there's any on this agenda item.
No, Chair.
Thank you. Bring this to agenda item number 13. Consider approval of $40,704.83 in gap funding in support of on the agenda, it's a neighborhood court restorative justice program for a 3-month period. However, we labeled it that in error. It should just be the restorative justice partnership and not the neighborhood court part of it. So I'd like to make that cleanup detail. With that, Carlene, I believe, is going to present.
Yeah, thank you. I'm hopeful everyone had a chance to review the materials that are in the packet. The Justice Assistance Grant is a grant that was received by the District Attorney's Office. It funds 2 HHSA staff to assist with the service provision for participants in a diversion program. The grant funding is ending. The District Attorney's Office is applying for additional grant funds that would be available June 1st, but there is a gap in funding. There were some questions that came up around this request between the time it was submitted and today's meeting. So some of the questions were surrounding sort of what other funding has been exhausted, and HHSA has exhausted any other opportunities to fund these positions. So MHSA was mentioned, and so Mental Health Services Act funding, we certainly have funding in the Mental Health Services Act. We are limited, especially within a plan. We're currently in the last year of our current 3-year plan on what we can fund using MHSA. And because this isn't a program we're already funding, and we are in the middle or really toward the end of our 3-year plan, we're certainly in the middle of a fiscal year. With the MHSA plan, we would not be able to leverage MHSA funding. There's a particular portion of MHSA funding referred to as innovations funds, which are a pretty incredible opportunity to try out new programs, to pilot things that maybe don't exist already in our county and sometimes even don't exist in the state. But it is quite a process to receive approval for innovations plans. We actually have to present the plan to the MHS OAC. It has to be listed for public comment across the state and ultimately needs to be approved by the Mental Health Services Oversight and Accountability Commission in order for us to use MHSA funding for an innovations project. So all of that to say, innovations funding under MHSA also not an option. There was also a question around any salary savings, and certainly Health and Human Services has quite a few vacancies currently. We're at about a 20% vacancy rate across the agency. So we do have some experienced salary savings across the agency due to those vacancies. But because of how our positions are funded, generally not funded by general fund, they are either through Medi-Cal billing, through allocations, state, federal grants. We don't have just a pool of salary savings that we can pull from to fund positions that are solely dedicated right now to a grant funded project. So that is not something that we would be able to do. So the request for the gap funding is $40,704.83. That would cover the time period until the new grant funds would be available. I have Julie Freitas here, who is a manager with our Adult and Aging branch, who can answer any programmatic questions if there's any questions about the actual program itself, and the work that the small but mighty team is doing. And Julie would be happy to answer questions, and I certainly can answer any questions as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Carlene. We'll open it up to the CCP. Tracy?
I just had a question. When will we know if we are awarded the second round of grant funding to sustain this program?
I want to say,
June 1st, right, Jonathan?
that sounds right. Yeah, it sounds right.
Yeah. The gap in funding is between March 30th and June 1st right now.
So when the award is made on June 1st, the notification, then you can switch the funding immediately? Got it.
Correct. Yes.
Other members?
I did some of my own inquiries and I spoke to some of the staff that actually are part of this DA program, but they're HHSA staff, a social worker and a caseworker, just to see if it would fall into the area of MHSA funding, but unfortunately, not a high enough percentage of the clientele are SMI or maybe at risk for SMI, which you would need. And I had some conversations with Carlene about this. So I was trying to figure out if we had exhausted all other possibilities before we use the CCP funding. It's not a huge amount of money, but we don't have a ton of money in the CCP. But in light of all that, I'm comfortable with this funding. It is a DA program, as you all know, but these two staff members are the treatment providers from HHSA. Our office is finding the money to fill the gap for our staff for those 2 months in other ways, but we do want to keep this program running. It's been successful.
Yeah, and I just want to offer, it's a good program. I mean, my clients benefited from it quite a bit. It's a really good program.
Can you say that into the microphone?
Absolutely. Is there other comments? If not, I'll open it up to public comment. All right. Clerk will open it up to public comment if there's any on this agenda item.
No hands raised, Chair.
Okay. I'll return it to the CCP for further discussion or any motions that might be out there.
I think it's again a great program, and it's a great example of collaboration and great outcomes for folks in the county. I'm happy to make a motion.
I will second that.
So we have a first by Nolan, a second by Chief Miller to approve agenda item 13. Clerk, can we get a roll call vote of the executive committee of the CCP? Given that this is a budget issue, it'll be the executive committee.
Yes, Chair. Member Davis,
Yes.
Member Miller,
Aye.
Member Olson,
Aye.
Member Raven.
Aye.
Member Sullivan,
Yes.
Member Vega,
Yes.
Member Prugnick.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, Julie.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Brings us to agenda item number 14. Consider approval of a $215,000 in gap funding for the Transition of Care program for a 6-month period. Leading this will be Tigwin Millard. I don't know if she's can be let in as a panelist. Tegwin, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Hi, I also have someone here who is actually the direct manager of the Transitions of Care program. Her name is Desiree Spignor, and I'm wondering if she could also be let in.
Yes.
And while we're waiting on that, our proposal is for gap funding until this particular program can bill ECM, Enhanced Care Management, for services. The Transitions of Care program is a reentry program, both for people who are exiting long-term incarceration or a psychiatric or physical health hospitalization that may not have access to some of the other benefits and resources that other folks may be able to access. And so it's a truly voluntary program. People get to opt into these services, and we have a pretty full staff that that works directly with clients. And in the submission that we sent in, you can see a little bit about some of the outcomes and some of the staff that are affiliated with this program. Desiree, do you have something that you want to add? Hi, everybody. This is Desiree from Transitions of Care program at Communicare.
Hi. No, not necessarily. I think we work pretty closely with folks that are on the call as far as like probation, parole, the public defender's office, and custody staff. So yeah, just the Transitions of Care program. And I know we're trying to get funding for the 6-month period until ECM funding is available for the reentry scope from CalAIM.
And so I'm not sure what questions people might have about some of the information that we submitted, or about some of the direct work that we're doing with clients.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. We'll open it up to the CCP for questions. Tracy?
I just had a question, a couple questions. The request came in 2 lump sums. One's for 107 for April through June. And then there's a second request for the same amount from July through September. To me, when I was reading the documents, it looks like your new funding source is going to be in place by July 1st, which is why I assume why you split it up into 2 different asks. Is that right?
Yes.
It sounds like yes. When the request came in, I did reach out to Communicare and ask them to bifurcate it between this fiscal year and next, to show their need for gap funding this year and then ongoing next year. So that could be why that is why potentially that the two figures are there.
Okay, but I guess what I'm trying to figure out is you're waiting for the new funding to be available, and the new funding is available July 1st, correct?
Correct, yes.
There's a reimbursement modality though too, correct, Desiree? It's not just like you get a lump sum of it's actually it's going to take some time to get up and running. So
right.
So there's a bit of a landing strip of sorts, Tracy, that they need to build and establish with ECM. They bill as they go, and eventually the revenue source builds, but it's not like July 1, all of a sudden an allocation is released, I believe is the situation.
Yeah, and
Right.
I'm sorry to jump in, but just to expand on that just a little bit, Tracy. So this is a benefit through partnership locally, because partnership is our managed care provider. And so this target population will become eligible for ECM, Enhanced Care Management, effective July 1st. But the referrals come through partnership, so that they will, assign clients to a provider. So there's definitely a ramping up process, and it's a per client sort of reimbursement system. And so I imagine that it will take several months to really sort of build up the program. And just to second what Nolan said, there's not a lump sum of funding available, and it's certainly not. It's not like a staff reimbursement model. There's an amount per client that the agency would receive.
And the goal is to become self-supporting so that we don't have, we're billing for services and recouping costs that way.
So is the delay that you're going to be providing services and you just won't get reimbursed for a period of time? So at some point, maybe you could reimburse CCP? Or is it that you just don't think you're going to have your slots filled, and therefore, in order to avoid laying people off, you have to have an extra 3 months from July through September?
I think there's probably a mixture of both. We just can't necessarily anticipate how quickly we'll be able to ramp up each one of our staff people with the adequate number to kind of just break even. And having some of that cushion so that we don't have to lay people off is part of what we're intending. And I think that the numbers are going to be there based on, the folks that we've served thus far and what we're seeing in some of our other ECM, enhanced care management, kind of pockets of services.
Okay, last question. This program is in effect right now. So you're
Yes.
it's not a ramp up because it's a new program. You have the clients in place, right?
Yes, and I think, go ahead, Desiree.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, we do our contract, the grant funding ends in March. We have about a month, enough access to roll over for a month, which is why we're trying to get the gap until ECM starts to ramp up. And as was mentioned earlier, in order so we can have enough time to transition everybody over. Historically, they have allowed, ECM or partnership has allowed for folks to be like grandfathered in, so we wouldn't necessarily have to wait for referrals. All the clients that we were supporting already, we should be able to add already to the list. Sorry, I screen switched. We should be able to add to the list. And then again, we need some time to get everybody kind of going on ECM.
Open it up to, Tracy, did you have one more? Looked like you were.
No, let John.
Or I'll go after Nolan and Oscar. I bet they'll probably ask my questions.
I'll go real quick, and Tegwin, I should know this, but I'm kind of getting caught up on all these new programs and things myself, my new responsibilities. What percentage of the TOC program is justice involved? Do we track that data metric? Is that part of the program? Is that a main component, primary component? What can you speak to that really quickly if you don't mind? I'm sorry, I should know this myself, but I'm kind of learning as I go.
I think the largest portion of our client population has had legal involvement, whether it's incarceration or has spent time in, county jail. Most of the folks that are coming to us have this experience, even those that may come to us initially by way of a mental health placement or a physical health hospitalization, where they're needing that additional support to help them stabilize once they come out of any placement. So I don't know the exact percentage. Desiree, you may have like a more, solid figure, but having legal involvement is the bulk of our population.
Yeah, I would agree. It's at last count, it's at least 70% of the population that we support.
Okay. And then we do somehow flag that at intake, Desiree, or somehow it's a metric that we track?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Go to Supervisor Villegas and then Chief Miller.
Yeah, thank you, Chief, and thank you, Tegwin and Desiree, for being here. I guess the most of the questions have already been answered relative to the budget that Tracy was asking. I just wondered, is it possible to get a budget of how the funds are going to be spent between now and the transition, when the transition ends, or what is that? Is that normally what we would ask for, Chief, or because it's not? I think it's a voting item, right? So we don't know how the funds are. I mean, I don't know how the fund. I mean, I know what there's support, but there's no budget for showing how they're going to be used to support this transition, which is critical. We don't want to slip backwards because I'm seeing all the good work that's happening in the staff report here. I don't know.
I don't know if Tegwin or Desiree would be able to answer that.
We can get a more specific itemized list, but from my understanding, the amount proposed is specifically just for staff. And I'm gas, because we also provide transportation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, and I kind of figured, I mean, it's staffing resources is what kind of makes the thing work, but I think it would be good to have a budget as part of the attached staff agenda item, given that we are being asked to, or we quote unquote are being asked to appropriate funding for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can get that.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chief Miller?
So Nolan asked the question that I was going to ask. So I guess I have more of a comment. You know, we've been really trying to go data driven, you know, and metrics driven, et cetera. And looking over the material, I just don't see the metrics that I'm looking for, how it impacts the AB 109 population and recidivism. Yeah, so I do have that concern. I would like to see, you know, for that amount of money, how it's going to directly impact, you know, the CCP population, if you will.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Supervisor Vegas, I was assuming your hand's just still up from last time, or is there anything? No problem. Sorry about that. Jonathan?
Yeah, Desiree, this is kind of the same question that leads to, you know, possible Mental Health Services Act dollars. What percentage of the population or the clientele that you're serving are either SMI, or we could look at them at the treatment as preventative from them becoming SMI? Do you have a feel for that?
Or it might be what the county classifies as FSP.
Do you understand the question?
Yeah, I do. I would honestly, and are you talking about what diagnosed as SMI or undiagnosed? Because we work with folks also that don't want to work with mental health care. And so it's really about managing like symptomology. So are you talking about diagnosed or undiagnosed, or would qualify for SMI specifically?
Both qualify, even if they're not diagnosed, and those who, you know, there's maybe a concern that they might, you know, develop those symptoms to possibly be SMI. That would be like the
Yeah,
prevention sort of side of the MHSA dollars with the SMI population.
yeah, I'm not sure. I know that's a lot of the folks also that we work with. I can actively right now, I'm not sure exactly what that number would be. I would have to check in with everybody about the folks that we're working with. But it would be, I know it's at least, I don't know, about 50 or 60%. I couldn't give you an exact precise number though. Yeah.
Would this be like, Carlene, if let's just say it was 100% for argument's sake? I know it isn't, but if it were, would it be something we could explore MHSA dollars with or not?
Yeah, I think there's a potential to explore the role or a role for MHSA funding in the future for programs like this. You know, I personally don't know a lot about the program either. So I think besides what was in the staff report, which I did review. So I think I obviously would like to learn a little bit more about it. I think that it's certainly worth exploring, you know, and it also depends on what the nature of the services are and things like that. So I think the data points that have been requested already would be helpful to me. And then, you know, this links a bit with the last item as well, but I think, you know, right now we are in the process of developing our new 3-year MHSA plan that will start in July. And so I think that building in some general priorities around how we're working with the criminal justice population and how we're addressing mental health with those who have had criminal justice involvement, I think will benefit us over the new 3-year plan period, and giving us some flexibility to explore how we might be able to leverage MHSA to fund programs that maybe have not historically been funded by MHSA or that could grow with MHSA funding.
I'll open it up for public comment on this agenda item if there's any, clerk.
No hands raised, Chair.
Open it back up to the CCP body for consideration or further questions.
Well, it sounds like there's a request for more information, so I guess we need to know how long they might need. I'm assuming you'd want this back on the next meeting.
Yeah, we'll try to get it as soon as possible. it shouldn't take that long for us to get a budget together. And it looks like some of the other things we were looking at is recidivism data. And then also the budget, and then there was the percentage of people who are experiencing a severe mental illness. Did I miss anything?
I don't believe so. I know for us, my officers do use transition care often for our population. We do have a lot of mutual clients with them. Prior to this meeting, I went downstairs and spoke to my field supervisor, and he said, yes, it's a great program. We use them often with our PRCS population specifically. So I know there's a nexus to it. It just sounds like we would feel more comfortable with a little more data and a little more information. With that being said, our next scheduled meeting of the CCP is not till April 10th. And it appears that you run out of funding in April. Not sure if the CCP would feel comfortable for a month or a 3-month period through the remainder of this fiscal year. And then we can reassess long-term after that, just throwing it out there for discussion.
Or what about a special meeting just on this issue?
We could definitely hold a special meeting. If that's the direction of the CCP, if we could potentially coordinate calendars and as we speak, and we could set a special meeting. Tracy, your hand went up.
If we're going to set a special meeting, it seems like we should put a lot of effort into getting the outcome and metrics ad hoc committee final product to the CCP, because I also heard Laura say that we're going to be starting the budget process really, really fast. So maybe we could utilize the next meeting for that as well.
Okay. Looking at Nolan and Matt, we have a lot of work to do. So well, let's look, does the group think February or March for the special meeting? And if we could stick to the, around the second Monday.
Just want to remind everybody as you're thinking about this, that the AB 361, our ability to use that, expires at the end of February with the governor rescinding the state emergency proclamation. So any meeting in March will be an in-person meeting.
Does February?
Yeah, I was gonna say end of February.
Supervisor Vegas?
Yeah, Chief, I was gonna just suggest another option rather than meeting necessarily, at least from my perspective. I'm comfortable if you get the budget and you're comfortable with more details. I'm comfortable deferring to you to say it's sufficient. I certainly don't want to hold it up at this juncture for $250,000. I would defer to you on what you're comfortable with, at least for the question that I asked.
Which makes sense. I think I would personally feel more comfortable with a special meeting to get the full buy-in and vote of the executive team. The benefit of February is we can do it via Zoom and it's sooner. I don't know the ad hoc on the metrics. We have until June to kind of come up with what we're doing. So we'd have more of a potential polished, finished project in March. But I open back up to the group for any other comments or.
Well, for what it's worth, I can tell you that I was going to be comfortable, depending on what the answers were for the questions that were already posed for 3 months. I wasn't necessarily comfortable with it. I don't know. we could come back in February, do a meeting that's really quick, vote on this, have some information by February, and if we want another meeting in March to talk about ad hoc outcomes, we can do that too, right?
Yeah, I think that would work out well. Hold a special meeting in February. We'll work with Communicare to get that data and the requested information to us ASAP, disseminate it, and then hold a quick special meeting. If that works for the group, and then we can look at a more of a ad hoc metric and outcome meeting the following month. Okay, then let's, looking at my calendar here. We would set the meeting for February 13th. Unless anybody has any major reason why they can't be there that day, vacation or whatever. Okay, unless we requested information, we'll hold a special meeting on February 13th to take a vote on this agenda item. With that, we'll close out the agenda items. Our next scheduled meeting after February 13th now is April 10th. And we'll decide on a March meeting with the ad hoc group if that needs to happen, depending on where we're at with things. That April 10th meeting, like Phil was mentioning, will be in person. We're trying to find the suitable location. Some of the options right now are the atrium at the CAO's office, potentially. Superintendent Lewis has offered YCOE area over at his place to potentially hold it as well. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on it right now. But if you do, Jonathan, were you? Oh, sorry, it looked like you came off mute. Oh, go ahead.
You're on it. Yeah, my only thought is if the atrium is available, that's where we had them before, and that'll save people, you know, how many of us 20 minutes of travel time to YCOE. I just think if atrium is available, it worked out well there, and it's nice of Garth to offer that. But atrium seemed like a good place, so we don't, most of us won't have to drive.
No, it makes sense. I believe we have requested it, and it is available for that date, is what I understand. So if that's the case, we'll hold it there for sure. Well, we'll adjourn the meeting unless anyone has anything else. Not seeing anything. We'll see everybody soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.